Hello and welcome to our to today's guest slot live here with me, and I have the wonderful Amy Oldfield with me today. I'm so excited, Amy, to hear all that you're going to share
Hello,
with us
everybody.
today.
Thanks for having me, Robin.
It's my pleasure. So, Amy, it's Body Theory by Amy, isn't it? Your business,
Yeah, lovely.
and Amy works with women to help them sync their cycles. So, looking at female hormones, and you've also written a piece for my next newsletter. So, if anybody is interested from today's discussion, wants to know more about Amy, then do sign up for my newsletter and I will share the link for that in the chat later. But Amy, I've listened to you on networking groups doing your 60 seconds, and you talk about this cycle syncing. But I'm sure lots of people would love to know more about that. And you talk in the article about how women have a second clock, which
Mm.
is to do with this syncing. So please tell
Mm.
us a little bit more about you and then explain more about what it is that you do.
All right. So I've been in the health and fitness industry for 10 years. So my background is in personal training. In fact, I used to have a gym in Bristol. But now I work online doing health coaching, personal training and nutrition coaching with women with a particular focus on fat loss and cycle syncing. So I've had quite a varied background with my own health journey, as many of us do when we end up in the health coaching space. We have our own stories and reasons why we get so passionate about things. I haven't always been a fit, slim, healthy person. So when I was younger, I was the fat kid at school. I've also been the skinny kid at school. So I've been all the sizes. And I definitely wasn't the person who was super sporty or picked in PE at school. Like that just wasn't me. I didn't get into weightlifting, which is what I do now, till much later on in my life. And in fact, I competed in bikini bodybuilding at one point. So, when you see those girls up on stage, all like tanned up and oiled up and in the sparkly bikinis, like, yep, I did that. But what actually happened from there was a lot of hormone disruption, poor relationship with food, poor relationship with my body, my hormones completely out of whack. And this is a lot of the stuff in the fitness industry that doesn't get a lot of airtime. So I've been on a journey of rebuilding my body, restoring my metabolic health, rebalancing my hormones because I actually lost my menstrual cycle. I was on hormonal birth control for much of my 20s and my 30s. And then after I came off that, realized I didn't have a cycle because I'd been putting my body under so much stress. The stress of exercise, competing in bikini bodybuilding, dieting, being someone who has helped women lose weight in the past. I've always been the guinea pig for all the diets. I've got to try them first before I recommend them. So I've done all the diets. I've been super stressed out. Like I'm a very stress sensitive person. I used to work very, very long hours, opening my gym early in the morning, closing late at night. So sleep was a bit deprived. And I realized that I just hadn't been treating my body very well. And I was so passionate about helping everybody else improve their health and wellness, but realized that actually I wasn't filling up my own bucket in the way that I needed to. So I took a little step back about 18 months, 2 years ago, and I completely refocused on me. So I worked on my gut health. I worked on bringing my menstrual cycle back, like connecting more to my female energy. I stopped exercising as hard. And I actually put on quite a bit of weight because I had to step away from always trying to be the lean personal trainer and looking the way that I thought I had to look. So I allowed myself to gain weight, rebalance my hormones, and become healthy again, essentially. So during that journey, part of my strategy was to learn as much as I could about the menstrual cycle and create a program, which is now the way that I work with women online, that helps them to not go through the same journey as me, but learn how to be healthy, lose weight, work hard in their gym routine or whatever exercise routine they have, but in a way which is more supportive of the female body, and understand that a lot of the advice that is out there is based on what works for men. So
I
we've
was
all,
just thinking that. Yeah.
yeah. So we've all heard of intermittent fasting, the keto diet, paleo, high intensity interval training, all of these fads that have kind of come and gone. I've done them all as well. Some of them have been more successful than others. But when these regimes are trialed, they're all trialed on young men. But it's not young men that are mostly using these regimes.
Or hoping to get the achieve the results, because they're probably seeing the adverts or thinking, I'm going to be like that again. And maybe my body just was never meant to be like that, or I'm past that stage in my life, or whatever.
Yeah. And our female bodies are very beautifully sensitive. So we need to look after ourselves. Like the volume of exercise we do, the amount of stress we invite into our world, the amount of sleep that we get, which can get difficult as we get into perimenopause and menopause as well. That's a whole other topic we can talk about as well. And all of these regimes, as I say, they're based on what works for guys. We're not men. We have a wonderful fluctuating monthly hormone system. And I like to think of our hormones like a symphony working together in a beautiful way. And when everything is balanced, we can feel pretty great at some times of the month, which means that certain things are more suitable to us. And there's other times of the month where it's perfectly natural and normal to just feel a little bit low ebb, and we don't need to be pushing ourselves so hard. But equally, when we know how to support ourselves at each phase in our cycle, the lows aren't as extreme. So it's okay to have highs and lows, but the lows aren't as extreme. Like PMS, we just think about it as something which is normal that women have to put up with because we're brilliant at putting up with things, but we don't have to. And we whisper about our periods like there's something we should be ashamed of, and that it's not normal to have this 5 days of bleeding in the month and we have to be quiet about it. But heavy periods, painful periods, we need to talk about this because it's partly a result of our lifestyle choices that are giving us so much inconvenience in our cycles. And women don't have to put up with it. Like there's things you can do. And that's part of why I do what I do. So I love helping women to sync with their cycle, make their cycle more enjoyable, like literally something they can actually enjoy and see that period as a blessing, because I certainly do, having not seen it for years and years in a row. Like appreciate what their body can do, like go into the gym, lift heavy weights, embrace all of that, all the time, working towards a physique that they love.
So much of what you're saying is resonating for me. And I wish I'd had an Amy in my life when I was in my late teens and 20s, because I could have really done with this wisdom.
I could have done with you as well.
You need to go back in time or something. But I went through the whole feeling like I was the fat kid. A doctor told me that I was overweight. And I then got this kind of body image, which was not good and not supportive. So I exercised. I didn't do particularly hard exercise. I did aerobics, but
yeah, I had a Rosemary Connolly video, VHS.
Oh no, I was prior to that. I was Jane Fonda, but feel the burn, because I was the 80s child. Well, not born in the 80s, but grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so it was feel the burn. And again, like you say, very much on a masculine, yang energy kind of framework, and lost a load of weight, ended up actually being severely underweight because I then got ill as well and went down to 4.5 stone. And
Wow.
yeah,
Hey,
it was
yeah.
serious
Yeah.
situation. But then, the whole, because I realized I was over exercising for the amount I was eating. I wasn't eating enough just because I'd got into such a negative spiral. And because if you stop eating, you lose your appetite.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So because I just food wasn't eating, lost my appetite, lost the weight. But then when I came back to being reasonably fit again and being able to kind of renegotiate over many years that kind of relationship with my body, to where now, because I've learned so much more along the way, of wanting to support people to work with their body, because so often from the media, images that we see, things that we hear, the whole thing about being a woman in periods and menopause now for my age, it's all of these things that we don't talk about. So we don't, when we're in the situation, we don't think other people are in it as well. We think we're the only one that's feeling bad. But when we can work with our body rather than against it, like you say, things are so much better. And we can take advantage of the times, whether it's times for rest or times for activity, because we can really get into it when we're in that cycle, that part of the cycle, can't we? And I love the idea of the moon, because
Yeah.
we are largely water, so we are influenced by the moon. And if
Yeah.
you think of the moon waxing and then waning, that's what our energy does. It
Yes, no
builds
coincidence that
and
the
then,
moon is a 28-day cycle.
yeah, exactly. And it's like the seasons of the year as well. We have a spring, summer, autumn, winter. We are meant, or we are designed, like you say, in a beautiful rhythm of the cycle. So I think it's beautiful that you support women to understand that and work with that, and therefore to get the most out of everything. Like you say on your website, to get more bang for their buck in the gym, but also in many other areas of their lives.
Yeah. Would it be helpful if I explained a bit about the various phases of the cycle? Yeah, should
Do.
we do that?
Yeah.
So it's quite funny. When I talk to women about their cycles, they often just think of they have their period, and then there's the rest of the month, and then the next period comes. They don't realize that it's kind of a
Nothing in
complete,
between.
yeah, nothing. It's just like it's not a complete cycle. It's just like the period, and then you get your normal self back. But
Yeah.
actually, you've got 4 distinct phases of your cycle, but we can also simplify them down into 2. But I'll describe the 4. So day 1 of your cycle is day 1 of your bleed. So this is the menstrual phase. Then after the menstrual phase, you move into your follicular phase. So this takes you up until you ovulate. And so throughout that menstrual phase and follicular phase, typically this is where estrogen is really starting to rise. It's the dominant hormone in this phase. And you might realize that you feel a bit more lively, energetic, outgoing in this part of your cycle. We also have a lower metabolic rate in that part of our cycle, which you might think is a bad thing, but it's actually quite a good thing, because it means that you're not as hungry and you can kind of get by eating less food. So after your follicular phase, we then reach what I think of as the main event, which is ovulation. I don't really think of period as the main event. I think of ovulation as the main event. And it's so important for women's long-term health to know that they ovulate and make sure they're ovulating as frequently as possible, because progesterone is released after we ovulate. And this kicks off the 4th part of the cycle, the luteal phase. So during the luteal phase, this is where progesterone rises. So what we think of as the other female hormone is more dominant in the luteal phase. And progesterone is probably the most protective hormone for the female body. It really helps keep anxiety and depression at bay. It helps us restore, well, not restore, maintain our muscle mass and our bone mass. So these things are so critical as we get older. So progesterone also has a very calming effect on the brain, which is why it helps to relieve anxiety. So a woman might feel more chilled out at this point in her cycle. So she can think about kind of calming down a bit in her exercise routine, or maybe in her business. This is the time of the month where she's kind of ticking off some admin tasks, not being so like creative and outgoing. But she's kind of hunkering down and doing the work. But then, of course, we get into the end half of the luteal phase, and this is where a woman can feel like a very different person. If she is trying to lose weight, this is where women will get derailed, because now we have a much higher metabolic rate. And we tend to think of higher metabolic rate as a good thing, but actually it just means that you have high hunger. So we need to eat more food at this point in our cycle. We're going to be hungry. We need to fuel the body. Studies actually show some women burn up to as much as 300 extra calories a day at this point in their cycle. So it's no wonder if you're trying to diet in this phase, you can't stick to your diet because you are starving and you're craving. And
I was going to say chocolate.
Yeah, like all the sugary foods, right? So hunger and craving goes through the roof. So actually we need to start thinking about eating a bit more food and different types of food, because we have very unstable blood sugars at the end of our cycle. But of course, as you say, everyone just wants chocolate. So we end up on this kind of self-perpetuating roller coaster of blood sugar highs and lows. And it's really about getting down to some self-care at the end of your cycle. Not pushing for personal bests in the gym, not worrying so much if you don't make your gym class, and actually prioritizing sleep, self-care, and doing whatever you can to kind of nurture your body, rest and restore, so that your period isn't such an event. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of like the 4 phases and what goes on within them. There's lots more. I can literally talk all day, but hopefully that helps to explain the 4 phases a little bit, and how your body is different, your brain is different as well.
And I think that's where we can learn to work with our bodies, and it's so important to understand that, and to let ourselves, maybe not off the hook, but to treat ourselves more gently, to know when now is the time I can really be creative, I can be outward focused, I can be social more at this phase, or work more in my business or in the gym in this phase. But if it goes a bit off rails later in the month, that's understandable. I can be gentle with myself. I can rest. I can listen to my body. That's a big thing for me. Balance and listening to our bodies, and being gentle with ourselves, being kinder to ourselves, and knowing how and when are best times for us to do things, depending on how we feel, or in this case, in where we are in our cycle.
And when it comes to living more of a cyclical lifestyle, I'm definitely not perfect at it. And the world isn't set up for a cyclical lifestyle anyway. So whether you have your own business or whether you're employed, you can think about just small ways that maybe you could start to change the way that you operate on a monthly basis. But when it comes to your social life, you have a bit more control over that. And it's kind of a funny thing that I joke with my clients about. When they're in their follicular and their ovulatory phase, they're booking in all of these social events. They're seeing things online that are going on. They're like, yeah, we're going to go there, buy a ticket to that, book myself in for that. And then they realize that then they're in their luteal phase when they've actually got to turn up to these things. And they're like, I just want to stay at home and watch Netflix.
Yeah, you know what? Nah. But it's amazing to me always how small changes make such a big difference. Yeah. So even if you're running a business or you work for a company and they're not maybe set up for changing things depending on how you're feeling, what we eat, how much we rest, and maybe just getting outdoors for a walk, gentle exercise on the days when
Yeah.
I just can't face the gym or whatever it is. And like you say, choosing the right foods. So you were talking about being in the luteal phase and the fluctuating blood sugar and stuff. So what do you recommend for people to eat when they're feeling those highs and lows and crash and all of those things? Presumably not the chocolate, not the high energy drinks or the caffeine.
Yeah, so there's a few things that I do, and there's some levers that we can pull. So, where should I start with this? So, with most of my clients, we look at macro tracking. So they understand how many proteins, carbs, and fats that they're eating on a daily basis. And so when it gets to the luteal phase and we have that rise in progesterone, which causes the blood sugar instability, we want to think about eating a bit more protein. Protein is very satiating, it fills us up. So that can really help to reduce hunger and cravings a lot, as well as balance blood sugar. And also leaning towards slightly more healthy fats than carbohydrates at this time. So I will typically recommend in the follicular phase, women can get away with eating less food, less protein, less fats. But in that luteal phase, high protein and high fat foods really help to balance out blood sugars, help to reduce hunger so that you're not feeling like you're craving chocolate, or some women crave salty foods as well. And oftentimes that can suggest something going on with the adrenals. So we would look more at what we can do to repair the adrenals and reduce stress levels at that point. And then I also love, you probably haven't heard of this, phase-based eating. So there's certain foods that have a beneficial effect on a woman's body at different points in her cycle. So in your luteal phase, like I say, we're focusing on eating a bit more protein, eating a bit more fat because it's really satiating. But when we are having those carbohydrates, making sure they're really slow releasing, but also really comforting as well, like chickpeas or sweet potato, brown rice, these sorts of foods that feel really comforting, boost serotonin in the brain, because that's something else that goes a bit haywire towards the end of your cycle. We lose serotonin, which is our calming feel good hormone. We also lose dopamine, which is the one which makes us feel really motivated and is very kind of pleasurable hormone. We lose that one as well. So this is why we're naturally seeking out high reward foods to replace the brain chemicals that we've lost. So if we can start to increase protein and increase carbs from these really wholesome food sources, it really does help. And then my best tip, and I think I've been drinking this just for our call actually. So a mug of cocoa powder in hot water is my absolute savior in my luteal phase. And I recommend this to all my clients. So if you've never heard about the health benefits of cocoa powder, like, we need to get into it because we naturally reach for chocolate to give us serotonin and dopamine and that feel good hit. But of course, chocolate is just cocoa powder plus sugar. But we can get all of the benefits just from the cocoa powder. So I love recommending to people making up this little drink where you have a tablespoon of cocoa powder, mix it up with some hot water. And then if you don't like the bitterness of it, I know not everyone loves the bitterness of dark chocolate, then, you can pop some sweetener in there or some milk or something and some cinnamon and, really, really spice it up. But this is a lovely drink for the brain, especially in the luteal phase, and also rolling over into when you come on your period as well, where you just want sugar, where you're feeling really low and you need a pick me up of energy. It's also really rich in magnesium, which helps reduce sugar cravings as well. So that's something I love to suggest in the luteal phase.
Great for this time of year as well, when it's getting colder and the days are getting shorter. Nice bit of hot, spicy chocolate.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get some pumpkin spice in there.
And it's interesting you talking about the sweet potato. Obviously, they have loads of benefits. And with myself now, I've actually passed menopause. I'm into menopause now. So knowing that countries where they eat a lot of yams, sweet potatoes, they have fewer problems with menopause.
Yeah.
So it's a benefit for that phase of our female life as well. So we've just had somebody come on saying very interesting and makes sense in the
Wonderful.
comment.
I'm glad I'm making sense.
But it's these easy, simple changes that we can do for ourselves, and the understanding of the fact why we feel the way we feel, that it's perfectly natural and normal, and we can build that in to how we structure our month. Like you're saying, feeling great and booking all these things in, and then realizing, oh no, that's that week. I'm not going to feel up to it. So actually, what I might like is just to sit at home, or go for coffee quietly with a friend or something like that, rather than I'm going to be dancing the night away.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk then about stress. And actually, just before that, you were also saying about serotonin, and you mentioned earlier about gut health, because of course, a lot of our serotonin is actually made in our gut, the bulk of it. So looking after our gut health, eating the right foods, because remembering as well that we're not feeding ourselves, we're feeding the bacteria in our gut, which then feed us. So when we take care of our gut flora and fauna and we eat the right foods, we will feel better. We'll feel better physically, but we'll also feel better mentally and emotionally, because it has this impact on our hormones.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you would just talk a little bit more about stress and the impact that stress has on our cycle, but also you were talking about weight gain and weight loss. And I know for people who are peri and postmenopausal, there's the belly fat, the expanding waistline. So what impact does stress have on that?
Stress is so interesting when it comes to the female body, because we're just not as resilient to stress as men, and we're set up in a very male world. And if we always try to operate as men, like I did, then you get yourself into trouble. So stress was one of the primary reasons why I actually moved on from my previous business. I mentioned before that I had a personal training studio in Bristol. And while I loved it, I loved what we did there. It was a lot of fun. Our clients absolutely adored it. It wasn't good for my health because of the amount of stress I was under. And when we think of stress, we often just think of it like an emotional stress, but there's many things we do that are physical stresses as well. So we have the obvious emotional stress that we really feel and we can acknowledge. But as a woman, too much dieting is very stressful. And like that was me. Too much exercise is very stressful. Again, that was me. Undersleeping, very stressful. Again, that was me. And being in menopause is also a natural stressor. So as you reach that transition point in your life, you become less resilient to stress, and we start to become more stress dominant. So I'll talk about a couple of hormones, so adrenaline and cortisol. So they're both stress hormones. One of them you'll feel and the other one you won't feel. We all know what adrenaline feels like. It can actually be really useful at times when you really need it before an event or a talk or an interview or something, and you really feel that rush of adrenaline. Or maybe like if you've been in a car crash or something, it's very stressful, but like you feel it. So we know that one. But cortisol it's kind of like a silent stressor because we don't feel it, but it's going on in the background. And I think this is why so many women can get themselves into trouble with stress and high cortisol, because we can't feel it. It's just, it's there doing its thing, and we just keep pushing on. So like you mentioned, you get the menopausal belly fat, and that's very typical as we start to become more stress dominant. Cortisol will encourage us to lay down fat in the tummy. And so, if you're menopausal and you're trying to reduce tummy fat, the go to, of course, eat less and exercise more. Bearing in mind, a minute ago, I said that that was really stressful. So, in menopause, your self-care strategy and reducing stress, it is non-negotiable if you want to manage your weight effectively and reduce your tummy fat, because just pushing harder and eating less makes the whole situation worse, coupled with the fact that you might be struggling to sleep soundly as well. And when we don't have a good night's sleep, we also have higher cortisol. So the older you get, until you're postmenopausal actually, and then your body can start to handle stress again. But whilst you're in that perimenopause menopause transition, you need to take your self-care very, very seriously, because stress will start to present in ways that you didn't realize was stress. Like for me, my menstrual cycle went away. For other people, it might be really low energy. For other people, it might be that they can't sleep very well. It might be that you start experiencing feelings of anxiety. So we do need to take stress very seriously when we live in a world which is very stressful, and where people can wear their busyness as a badge
of honor.
Yes. And when we're busy all the time, when we're always go, 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 as many women are, especially if they've got young kids, they're working full-time jobs, there isn't that much downtime, and it's very stressful for a woman. And you'll start to see that present in different ways, like I explained. And I think of the period as, well, it's not that I think of it, like gynecologists have actually announced it now. It is the fifth vital sign of your health. So if something is going on with your health, which your body doesn't like, it will present that in your period. So we also need to look at that as a sign that actually, hey, maybe you need to adjust some things here.
Definitely. And also that phase of a woman's life, often in the peri to postmenopause, is a stressful time.
Yeah.
It can be a stressful time at work because it might be the age at which you're in a managerial role, or it can be caring responsibilities. Parents are getting older, kids maybe growing up, leaving home, maybe even older kids if you started your family earlier, and now there are grandkids and you're having to look after grandkids. Because I know women in their 40s with grandkids, which maybe wasn't the case years ago. And it's trying to juggle all of these different things. And of course, we're living in, as they keep calling them, interesting times, when we had COVID and now we're coming back. And are we hybrid working or office working, or what are we doing? And the whole financial situation. So it's just stress on top of stress on top of stress. And if we're not taking care of that and we're pushing it down and just, oh, it's fine, I'll just keep going, then, like you say, the cortisol, we might not be feeling stress as such, but we're feeling the consequences, because a lot of people have these niggling health concerns. And if you're peri and postmenopausal, you can't look at that fifth health sign, because things are all over the place or periods have stopped altogether. So like you say, very, very important to take really good care of ourselves in this phase.
And it's in the Western world that menopause symptoms are actually at their worst because of the lifestyle we lead, because of the foods we eat and the stress that we're under. menopause is a real thing in this part of the world, whereas in other parts of the world, it's not a real issue because they don't eat the same way and they don't lead the same go, go, go lifestyle that we have as well, which I think is really interesting.
It's certainly something to kind of fly a flag and say, why is this? Let's look at why this is, and let's see what we can take on board from other cultures, other lifestyles that maybe would support us better. Definitely.
And do you find this, Robin? You might say to somebody, how are you? And their response will be busy. And I'm like, is busy now an emotion? Because when you're asking someone how
it's
they
a state
are,
of being, for sure.
You're asking someone how they're feeling, like emotionally, you know, how they are, and the response now is often busy. So now busy is emotion.
I think it certainly is a feeling now. So whether you class it as an emotion, it's a state of being, it's how we feel. And a lot of us are maybe feeling like I'm up to here and beyond. So yeah, probably. But you talked about sleep and the importance of sleep. And I just wanted to mention a book that I have mentioned on the group before, but it's Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Have you come across it? Yeah, I thought you probably had. But if anybody is interested in sleep and what sleep actually does for us, because it does so much more than we might think or might be aware of, and why then it is really so important. I mean, I know that sleep's important, but when I read that book, oh my goodness, it made me think, right, I'm going straight to bed. I'm going to get my quota of sleep and then some. So I highly recommend having a read of that book if you can get your hands on it. It's available on Amazon. I'm sure it's probably an audiobook as well if you prefer to listen rather than read. Yeah, so that's a really good one. Chat here, just somebody's saying that they're feeling the way we've been describing and they're taking some downtime at the moment. So that's brilliant that you're listening and taking that downtime. Absolutely. And although, like you were saying, Amy, we often wear our busyness as a badge of honor, I think now there is a slight shift and a change where women are becoming more aware. Maybe people generally are becoming more aware and realizing that we do need to have that balance and take that downtime. Certainly in the circles that I work in, there's a lot of talk about burnout and a lot of awareness around burnout, and that it is so important to take time when we can, or to just make time, because it's that saying of, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll have to make time for your illness.
Yes.
Because the body will just say, and if it starts off in a little whisper, it's going to raise the volume and shout if we don't listen. And I know friends who, one of them was really stressed in an old job that I had years ago. She was a colleague of mine, and one morning she couldn't get out of bed because her back went because she wasn't feeling supported. And I've known other people who've had similar situations. And myself, I ended up, I got ME when I was late teens, early 20s, and my body just said stop. I ended up in a wheelchair and then in bed rest for 8 weeks. So that's why I'm so passionate. It's like you were saying, Amy, right at the very beginning, we go through this journey ourselves and we learn and realize so many things, and we see other people then who are going on a similar path, and you think, if you'd like to avoid where I ended up, because it's not very nice, here's what I've learned. I'd love to share it with you in case you find it of interest and help for you too.
Yeah, everyone has that light bulb moment in their health journey where something happens and it's like a line in the sand, right? Yes. Something has to change here. And I remember having that moment when I was having a conversation with a menopause doctor. We were just chatting about something else. And I happened to drop in that, I don't have a menstrual cycle. She was like, hang on, how old are you? I think I was about 35 at the time. I was like, yeah, I just don't have them. And she was flabbergasted. And then she went on to explain to me how important it was that I had a cycle and how just because I'm fit and healthy, that's the only way that I don't feel absolutely terrible right now. Because she's like, you should feel terrible, and somehow you're escaping this because you look after yourself
Yeah.
and you exercise and you eat well. But she said, if you don't sort this out, you're going to have a horrendous menopause.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So
And your bone density and your heart health and all of these
yeah,
things will be impacted because, like you were saying about the progesterone and the estrogen,
it's so protective.
we need that
Yeah.
for our health, our maintenance. But I lost my cycle when I was, I think, late teens. Didn't have any for years. It was quite normal for me. I was late, and they were never, to start, and they were never regular until I went on birth control pills as well. But they never settled into a pattern because of the not exactly healthy way that I was living. But I was reasonably fit as well, so I probably was managing better than otherwise. But still, all of those years, and then, doctors were saying to me, your heart health is at risk and all of these things. I thought, it really is a bit of a almost slap in the face to wake you up to go, I think it would be good to take a look at this and to find out how to support yourself better rather than just pushing.
It's so interesting, the parallels between our journey, actually, how we kind of started very similar way, overweight, underweight, no periods, birth control, and so many parallels, which just makes me think there must be so many other people who also.
That's what I was going to say. I think with we're living in the male yang culture, really, those expectations that we then take on board as to how we should look, how we should behave, how much we should be achieving or doing in our lives. And so I think that journey, at least those steps along that journey, probably aren't all that rare. They're probably fairly common for women to start off maybe a little bit of, they call it puppy fat, but a little bit bigger when they're kids, and then they think, oh no, I'm supposed to be slim and I'm supposed to look like this, so then I'll do whatever, the dieting or the bodybuilding or whatever it is to get the body that I'm being made to believe I'm supposed to have. But then that makes me unwell, I lose my periods, and it's just like, well, if you've been there, you're going to go there, you're going to go there. It's kind of like just that path.
Yeah, totally agree. And when I realized how important it was that I got a handle on my health, I just decided one day, that's it, I'm going to sell my business. And I told a few people and they were absolutely flabbergasted. And I was just like, no, that's it. No, it's time for me now. It's time for me to sort my body out, sort my head out, because I'm focused now on my long-term health. I want to make sure that when I'm 60, 70, 80, maybe even 90, I still have complete vitality. And that is so important to me that I decided to completely give up my business. I took a whole year out of work, which surprised the hell out of my friends and family. They thought I wouldn't be able to do that because I am the type A. I like to achieve, very driven. They'd be like, you going back to work yet, Amy? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm all good.
A different drive, a different thing to achieve.
Yeah. So I tapped into a totally different side of my being for 12 months and just gave my body what it needed. And well, not everyone needs to be as extreme as I was to get a handle on their health. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we do just have these moments in our life where it's like a complete decision of, I need to up my game now and look after me.
Yeah. And I'm a great fan of Brene Brown, and she talks about how you get to a certain age and life comes along, takes you by the shoulders, gives you a bit of shake and says, it's now or never.
Yeah.
Because you're at an age where if you don't do it now, it's like, when are you going to start your pension? If you don't start it early, you're not going to be able to pay enough in to get what you want out of it at the end. Yeah. And it's sort of that thing as well. We're banking our health by what our hormones are doing at this stage in our lives. And you were saying there about wanting to have a good menopause and wanting to have a good later life, and bearing in mind as well, like Davina McCall on her program on the menopause, was
I love
highlighting the fact that women of the age at which menopause generally occurs have a higher suicide rate.
Yes.
And apparently it's gone up some horrendous percentage. I was reading the other day, I can't remember the figures, but it's gone up, and probably largely to do with the fact that we are not healthy in our culture for women.
Yeah.
All the stresses that we're putting on our bodies, because they built up from all those years of yo-yo dieting and not eating good, healthy, nutritious foods and putting ourselves under so much stress. And then we hit a bad menopause. But also that has an impact, as she was also sharing in her program, on the possibility of us getting heart conditions as we get older. There's so many more women having silent heart attacks now, and also on dementia.
Yes.
Which, you know, they're the two big diseases of our time, really. So all the more reason to, like you said, I love what you said about drawing the line in the sand and starting to think differently, live differently, in order to, I mean, you are a glowing example of how it can be. Although you made that huge change, you sold your business and everybody's going, what? This is the result that you've created. And for people to be able to see that if you do something drastic, like selling your business and people are thinking you're crazy, if you make the decisions that are right for you, you can come out loving life.
Yeah, exactly.
And being successful.
You know, we're living longer and longer these days.
Yeah.
So when you reach menopause, you've possibly got another 50 years of your life left to go, and you want to live it in the healthiest, most vital way you can. Like, I definitely still want to be lifting heavy weights when I'm in my 80s. I actually can't imagine myself not doing that. Yeah. That is just not a possibility. Like, I'm doing it.
Well, my grandmother lived to 103. And she didn't live in probably the best of times, you know, through the world wars and stuff, both of them, rationing and all of that sort of stuff. But she lived to 103. I'm 54. I could have another 50 years.
Yeah.
So I'm only halfway through my life.
Yeah.
Kind of
Which
thing.
is exciting, right?
It is exciting, so long as I can stay healthy. I don't fancy having a decrepit old age. No. And my grandmother was pretty good right up until she was about 100, 101, 102. So I'm banking on the same. I'm holding that intention of that's going to be me too.
Yeah, she's really set the bar quite high, hasn't she?
She has. She has. So it's been great chatting with you, Amy. Thank you so much for all the wisdom that you've shared.
No, thank you for having me here. I could talk all day about health and wellness, and I'm sure you could as well. It's fascinating stuff. If anyone wants to go ahead and ask any questions, we can kind of come back to you guys later. I'd love to do that.
I was just going to say, if anybody would like to connect with you, having heard all that you've shared and thinks, oh my goodness, that's me, I need a bit of Amy in my life, how can they get in touch with you?
So best way to get in touch with me is either on Facebook or Instagram. So on Facebook, I'm just Amy Oldfield. Look me up and friend me. Or you can connect with me on Instagram, where I'm Amy Body Theory. So that's the best way to find me.
And as I said at the beginning, don't forget, if you'd like to read a little bit more of what Amy was talking about and this syncing and the second cycle that women have, then she's written a beautiful article for my newsletter, which is going out on the 1st of December. And I'll share the link for you to sign up if you're not already a subscriber. So thank you very much for watching today. and or watching the replay. If you have any comments that you'd like to share, do please stick them below. And if you're watching the replay, to do that, stick in #replay. It'd be lovely to know that you've come back to watch this. And that's all really from us for today. I wish you a very happy weekend and see you again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Robin. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Amy.